in a team sport, you can be the best player on a team. If the coach doesn't like you, you're not going to play. Same with triathlon, right? Like, you do not every day swim, bike, and run in one thing. No, you swim, then you bike and run. Sometimes you make like a brick run where you bike and then you go into a run, but you don't do everything together in one session, right? No one likes to lose. No one is there like, yeah, I get like to get my ass kicked. No, like some people are just more, I think some people are just afraid to use it or to show it, but I think everyone's competitive in the world, right? If you have people around in a gym and you know they're looking at you, you train better, you train harder. So it is this effect, right? It's not like you even need someone to train with you or try to push you. It's just like people in a gym. Like, that's why I love competition, because I know, like, okay, they're watching, you better go hard because you don't want to look like an idiot. CrossFit is their own sport. They have their own things you have to work on. So you can learn from other sports, but not everything works one-to-one. When something doesn't work well, what do the people do the first? They're like, oh, I need another training program, right? It's always this. Like, I heard so many times, like, oh, I need a different coach, I need a different training program, instead of like looking first what they do around the training program.
Welcome to this new episode. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsor for the podcast, Moxy Monitor. For those who don't know about the Moxy Monitor yet, it's a NIRS device that measures muscle oxygen saturation and blood volume in real time. It's a non-invasive sensor that is placed on the skin and can be worn during any training or sporting activity. Motocross riders and climbers wear it on their forearms, hockey players on the ice, swimmers can wear it in the water. I've used it to test rugby players, CrossFit athletes, endurance athletes, and more. The Moxy allows you to individualize work and rest periods, optimize load, reps, and sets, identify training thresholds in real time, and even correct movements based on what the data is showing you. You can also use the Moxy Monitor to determine an athlete's energetic limiting factor and their individual training zones. Using this process, you can better target the athlete's limiter with precision in order to improve their programming, training, and in turn, their performance. You can view and collect the data on your Garmin watch, and you can also pair the Moxy with other physiological testing products, such as the VO2 Master, Pnoe, and Cosmed VO2 systems. The Moxy is a tool I've used weekly for over a year now with great success, and I highly recommend it to any coach who's interested in digging a little bit deeper on the physiological side of health, fitness, or performance. You can use the coupon code UPSIDE at checkout for a 5% discount on moxymonitor.com/shop. That's UPSIDE for a 5% discount. With that said, let's get into the show. All right, Adrian, we're live on the podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's absolutely my pleasure to have you on. For the couple listeners who don't know who you are, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Well, I'm born in Switzerland. I was a professional player in my young age, and then I had some injuries, turned off the sport, and I actually started in 2015 with CrossFit. And since then it went pretty quick up. Have been now 4 times to the games, and best placement was like 8th place in 2019. And still trying to get better and better and trying to reach the top. So yeah.
What brought you to CrossFit? And was it hockey you did before? Is that how you know Arno?
No. I met Arno literally like a year ago when he opened the gym at home.
Okay.
I didn't know him before. But when he opened the gym, I was like, oh. So I texted him. I was like, hey, I really want to come to the gym. And he was like, yeah, come whenever we pass by. And we actually got really good friends. So it was really nice. It was actually like, so I was like just in the cut from juniors to pro level. I had a really good last junior year. So there were like different offers from different clubs for the pro level. But then I had an ACL injury in the first playoff game of the whole season. So a lot of clubs took back their contract. And I signed in the second highest league in the NLB. In Thurgau. The coach there, he was like all in. He was like, come here, I really like you as a player. Just play one good year here, and then you can go off to like the highest league and stuff. But there were 2 things. My knee took longer than I expected. I didn't found back like to my old game. And actually the coach got fired because we had a really bad season start. And with a new coach, I had really, we were not good buddies. It didn't went great. So I left, and from there I was just like, damn it. And my dream was always being a professional athlete, and I had been enough of like, like in a team sport, you can be the best player on a team. If the coach doesn't like you, you're not going to play. And like, I had been enough. So I was like, look, I want to do my own thing. I always was. So even in my ice hockey days, I was mostly the best or one of the fittest in the conditioning tests. I always loved to train. I actually did my summer training back then. I always did it alone. Because I always thought if I want to be better than the guy next to me, I have to do work on my weakness. I have to work on my strengths. I have to work on my game, right? So yeah, I always was really interested in strength conditioning training. And then I saw one day CrossFit on YouTube. It's like, damn, that looks really cool.
Do you remember what your first workout was? That's a mandatory question I have to ask.
Yeah, I know. No, I really don't know. And I'm really bad with names as well. Like, like the other day, like I remember 19 at the games, we were like, we do Mary or whatever. I was like, what the, I didn't even know what Mary, like, I'm so bad. like I literally know 2 workouts and the other stuff. I'm like, I always have to Google it. It's like, what, wait, Amanda, what is this again? Let me check. Oh yeah, it's the 9-7. Like, I'm not good in this stuff. But yeah, so I got like, so I played last year ice hockey. I played in the first league, so in the third highest league in Switzerland. I had a 50% job, so in the morning I was always off. So I ordered myself some barbell, some weights, put it in a strength room we had in the ice hockey club. So every morning I actually went there, was training or started training CrossFit, like teaching myself lifting weights, teaching myself doing this butterfly pull-ups, muscle ups. In the afternoon I went work, and in the evening I had ice hockey training. So I did that for a year, and then after a year it was like, I have enough of ice hockey. So actually they opened a CrossFit gym in St. Moritz back then, and they asked me to like run the gym and everything. And I was like, yeah, I'm on it. Took my stuff on next week. I was back home and went on that ride, and yeah, it was interesting. It was really cool.
When you did that transition, looking back, what would you do differently now if you were put back in that same position in terms of whether it's progressions or certain things that you learned or that you wish you'd learned differently before? Is there anything you think you could have optimized looking back on it?
On my whole career, or
on your transition into CrossFit, and then learning the sport as a sport?
Well, first of all, what I regret is that I didn't know the stuff I know now about strength conditioning when I was playing ice hockey. Like, that would be a game changer. Like, looking back now, what we doing, and still a lot of people do in different team sports and all stuff, what they do, I'm shaking my head. I'm like, yeah, it's crazy. So I think there's a lot of time to grow there, and I wish I would have known that. On the transition, like I said, I wouldn't change anything because it was my way. It was like, there are so many memories back then I have, and looking back, and it was amazing, especially my first year qualifying for the games. I wouldn't change. Like, of course, like now I'm much smarter, experienced a lot. I did a lot of mistakes, learned from a lot of mistakes, but no, I wouldn't change anything. It was a ride, and it was a hell of a ride, and it was really cool.
Yeah, so you've been, I guess, deep into CrossFit for at least 5-6 years now, since you really dedicated yourself to the sport. What's your vision of CrossFit? The methodology, the competition side. How do you see it today?
Well, to be honest, I think like CrossFit is like, for me, is a sport, and I train strength conditioning and I compete in CrossFit. Point. It's pretty simple. Like I said, I'm not that deep into CrossFit. I have nothing to like. I have no admire. I coached in the beginning, like I said, like affiliate in some Moritz, and it was nice to make people fit. But even like as a coach, I'm way too like driven to coach normal people. Like I'm there and like, come on, let's go. Like, you can do it, and then they're like, no, I'm fine today. I'm good with this, and I'm like, how you can even say that? Like, or people come in, it's like, oh, I had a hard day at the office, I'm just taking it easy today. I'm like, oh, I'm like, I just see like I'm wasting my energy, like I have like I see some like doing something, and I have like 5 ideas how to improve it, and I go over, it's like, hey, try this and this, and this might help, and they're like, oh, I'm fine, I'm good. And it's just like, I'm like, I'm wasting my time. So it was nice for like 1 or 2 years coaching people, and it was like a big experience, because especially back then CrossFit was not known that much in Switzerland, and especially not in the mountains where I lived. So for 3 months, every class I actually had to explain what we're doing here. You know, like there are so many times people, like I remember once there were like 4 girls coming in. It's like, hi, yeah, can we join a class? I was like, yeah, of course. And then they came, and then we started a class. And after the warm up, they were already like smashed, and they were like, and then one of the girls came over to me. It's like, this is not Zumba, right? So they literally thought that it's gonna be a Zumba class, like. So it was hilarious. Yeah, like so many memories, but yeah, it was interesting. But like I said, for me, CrossFit is the sport I compete in, and I train strength conditioning.
Yeah. When you make that distinction in your mind, is that something that transpires into your training as well? Does your training look very different than other CrossFitters at the top? You know, the other competitors that you compete against, or do you feel like most of these guys and gals have the same approach as you now? They train strength and conditioning, like you said, and then they compete in the sport of CrossFit.
Yeah, like, to be honest, like maybe let's go back again to the question, like what is CrossFit? Like you can see, like in the 1980s, you can see like Russian wrestlers. They did like something similar than CrossFit. Like there's an old video. They did like circle training with like functional movement, and they did it in high intensity. You know what I mean? Like I think Glassman, he just put it a name on and made a company out of it. But the stuff what CrossFit is, it is strength conditioning. You know, it's not like it's not invented a new movements and new sports, you know, like all the movements we have done since years. So it's like, that's why I'm not having even like fights or discussion with people about the different CrossFit and strength conditioning or whatever. For me, this is just strength conditioning, and it's a sport. And yeah. And sorry, what did you ask again? Second question.
It was the relationship between strength and conditioning as being your main
Oh,
training,
yeah.
and then how other competitors look at it or maybe approach it.
Yeah. So I think you can see it in the beginning, like CrossFit is still a new sport, right? And I always tell people, make the difference between CrossFit as a sport and CrossFit as a lifestyle, right? So it's different if I go 3-4 times to the gym for an hour having fun. Yeah, I go hard, but then I go home and that's it, right? And then you have to see CrossFit, like I said, as a full-time sport, as a professional sport. What most games competitor are, they are now all professional. So if you look back like 10 years ago, you saw people training. Like I love watching like those old Rich, what is Rich doing videos when he was just like smashing like 6-7 workouts a day. And it was inspiring for me as well. But that was back then the thought. So back then the thought was like, okay, if you want to be better in CrossFit, you just do more workouts, more metcons, more this. But like now you're like, I always made it different, because I always said like, okay, it makes no sense to destroy. Like if I want to get better in one movement, it doesn't make, like, let's say I want to get better in running. It doesn't make sense if I do running with burpees and wall balls and pull-ups, because it's such a small amount of running, you know what I mean? I have to focus on just running, and then I put it together, and then it works, right? And I had that attached, like I had that mindset already back in 2015. So I was already like pretty like make it clear what I need to work on, and then you just put it together. So like training in ice hockey, it's not, we never played in training. Like you mostly like make some game situations, but you never play the whole game. We never played like 60 minutes of ice hockey. Like, no, you train like technique, you train your skating, you train passing and stuff, and then you put it together in a game, right? And that was always my approach with CrossFit as well. So I think now a lot of people change, just like you can see, like they make pure gymnastic, pure conditioning, pure weightlifting, and then you put it together. And then, like I said, of course, if you go like before competition, you do more metcons just to get used to it, of like transition and stuff. But same with triathlon, right? Like you do not every day a swim, bike, and run in one thing. No, you swim, then you bike and run. Sometimes you make like a brick run where you bike and then you go into a run, but you don't do everything together in one session, right? And yeah, that's it takes more time. That's what I'm saying. Like you see more and more people being professional, but I think that's the way to go, and that's where we grow. And
do you think it's a prerequisite now to perform at the highest level in CrossFit to be a full-time athlete? Are the days of you can do this and then do a little bit of something else on the side, are those days gone already or close to being gone?
I think you still can probably qualify to the games, but I think if you really like, they're always like people that can. I always expect, how do you say, not expectations. One or two people are like different than everyone else, right? I just see on me right now, like there's no chance. Like I'm no there like for me there's no chance, especially like not like I said, not qualifying just to the games anymore, like having a shot to like on a podium and win the stuff, you know what I mean? Like I said, I don't say no, like you can see, but most people, I don't think so. And that's, most people don't understand how much dedication it needs and how much cut off stuff it needs. Like always people think like, yeah. Like a good example is like, I was texting with an athlete, a woman, a week, 2 weeks ago, and we were texting. It's like, yeah, and she was like, I was like, what's your goal for the next year? Like, how about the goals? Like, you want to go to the games? She's like, yeah, I really want to go to the games. And I was like, well, if you like, I want you come over to the island and I can show you like just train a few days with me so you understand what it needs to go to the games. Like, and she was like, yeah, sounds really good. I really would love to do that. And then she was like, but the earliest I can come is end of January, because now we're going for like 3-4 weeks holidays to Mexico, and then we go to this and this. Like I was just there and I was like looking at the messages like, so you think
It doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't.
Those
Like,
two
so you
things don't
think
go
like,
together.
no, that's like 2 months. You're wasting 2 months. And it's just like, no. And yeah, it's really interesting how people like have their mindset sometimes and think it's like just going to be like this and you're going to be there. And like I said, nowadays it's not anymore like just qualifying to the, I think a lot of people have to go qualifying to the games, and then they go to the games and they get their ass kicked, because that happened to me in 2016. I went, like, was my first year open, first year regionals, first year games. I was like, oh, that's actually not that hard. I came to the games and my ass got kicked in everything. Like, I was like the levels at regionals back then, it was good, but I placed fourth, and I was like, yeah, you had like 10 good people, but at the games, just everyone is good. Like, you had a workout. I remember Murph. I was like really good in like gymnastics back, like still, but back then especially, I was like, oh, Murph is a good workout. I placed 18th. I was like, what the hell? So it's just like, to understand how good the level is at the games, you have to be there. And I think a lot of people, like, they have their goal, like, yeah, I'm gonna want to qualify to the games, but then you go actually to the games and you get your ass kicked because you realize how good the people are, and that's not fun. That's really like, I hated my life after the games 2016. I was like, not like, I was like, I have a lot of work to do because these guys are really, really good.
Yeah, what comes to mind when you say this is I guess something that Matt said a lot when he was training for the 5 years that he won, was always, he always said, I hate traveling. I hate traveling because I can't stick to my schedule and train properly. And so, if it was up to him, he would just train day in and day out 365 until that next games, because like you said, that's really what it takes to be at the very top of the pyramid.
Well, to be honest, yeah, I 100% agree. And to be honest, the last 4 years, like, especially well, not 4 years, but the last 2 years, like, it's really easy to get soft, right? And like, people always hear and have those quotes and like, like, but they mostly don't understand the quotes. They don't understand if Matt says something like this, they're like, well, Dominic, like, it's you, will be fine, you know what I mean? And like, for me, especially the last 1-2 years, I thought I'm good, and like, but I always felt there was something missing. And like I said, I always had the goal end up on a podium, and like, of course everyone wants to win the games. Like, it's, yeah, like, of course you want to win the games. Like, who doesn't want to win? Like, it's the same when you ask people, are you competitive? Yeah, of course you're like, I believe every human is competitive, because like, no one likes to lose. No one is there like, yeah, I get like to get my ass kicked. No, like, some people are just more, I think some people are just afraid to use it or to show it, but I think everyone is competitive in the world, right? And I had to understand, or like, what I'm doing right now. So I had a hard time after the games this year. I had kind of depression. I was injured for long.
Was it your knee?
Yeah, exactly. It was my knee. So I had a knee injury for like 4 months before the games, and I was just like always trying positive. It's like, oh, we'll be fine. Semifinals. I made it kind of through. I have no clue how I placed second in semifinals with my knee. Like, I was like, if it goes well, I qualify. But when I saw myself second, 8 points behind BK, I was like, huh? that's weird, because my training wasn't great. I wasn't in a great shape because I was mostly just taking care of my knee. I couldn't lift at all. And then before the games, it got even worse. So it was just a hard time. Like, I know going into the games, this is not going to be great, because like 3 weeks leading up to the games, I was literally training 1 hour and like taking care of my knee for 4 hours a day. So it was like, yeah, of course I'm not gonna, like, and then you have people there totally peaked. Like, so I know even the game's not going to be great. And then I was like, I want to see, maybe I can make it through. And then on the second day, I couldn't walk anymore or like put any weight on my knee because it was just like burning. So it's like, there's no point. But more interesting is what happened afterwards. So afterwards, like, because everything, like, I always try to be positive and stay positive, and then everything like exploded and I was just like empty. So I kind of fall in this depression. It was really crazy. Like for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I was just like, I didn't felt anything, no emotions, nothing. Like, I had some personal stuff. Actually broke up with my ex-girlfriend a week after the games, and I was there, and I was like, and then I was actually at my friend's place, and he was like, how do you feel? And I was like, well, I don't know. I really, like, I was literally sitting for 3 or 4 weeks just at home looking at the wall. I was no motivation for nothing, no feelings for nothing.
Would you say that was the hardest part of your career so far as an athlete?
Mindset wise, yes. Yeah, mindset wise for sure. Like I said, my knee, because it was the problem, no one could really tell me with my knee. Like, there was an inflammation in it, but no one could really tell me. Or we tried so many things, injection, nothing helped. And like, of course, you get thoughts like, why I'm still doing this? What's the point? Like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I was really close. I was like, I could actually be done now. I'm like, I'm done. It's fine. Like,
so what kept you in? What kept you going? How did you get out of that, of those 3 weeks?
Well, after 3 or 4 weeks, I was like, hey man, you have to like start training, like just start. Like, so I started slow and did what I could do, and I just needed to get my head like spinning again. So I went back to the gym, started train, and like, I'm really like, if something goes wrong, I'm not disappointing. Like, let's say at the games, I was like, it didn't went great, and I was literally the evening at the games, I was already thinking the whole night. I didn't sleep the whole night because I was thinking what I'm going to change for next year, what I'm going to do, what can I improve, what can I do, make next year the best year I ever could do. So I was just thinking, yeah, there were like a lot of things, and yeah, so I started training again. It went better. Like, I was still trying to fix my knee. No one really could help me. I was still painful. One day was good, next day was again worse. And then my plan, what I made up, I was like, I need, so in 2016, I actually moved to Mallorca for 6 months. I was training with John Singleton. We got actually really good friends, and we had really passion back then, and he helped me a lot. And it was just like the mindset. I was all in. I was like nothing else. Like, we were just the home gym, and the island had a really special place for me. So I came every year back, and every year was great training. So I was like, look, I want to go to an environment, first of all, where it's warm weather, because in summer it's like, I have my own gym there and it's nice, but it's minus 20 degrees for like 3 months, and it's snow and cold and dark. And
can you talk about the impact of that environment and the cold and the winter on the quality of your training? What impact does it have?
Well, there are a few impacts. Like, one impact is the high altitude. So we are 1,800 meters. And yeah, when I tell people that, they say like, this is amazing for high altitude training. And it's like, yes, it is. But the problem is, CrossFit is a high intensity sport. So what you have to understand with high altitude, your recovering is much worse because you're higher up, right? Your body can take off less oxygen, right? That's one thing. Then the second thing is like, you cannot do as much volume training because, like I said, your recovery is worse. So you have to understand that. And there's a much bigger risk to get, because of those two factors, to get into overtraining, right? And the thing is, like I said, you get more red blood cells if you're high altitude, right? But the problem is, you cannot do as much high intensity as normal. So the endurance athlete, let's say there are a lot of runners up there. I know a lot of triathletes. So they come up there, do all their easy long stuff up there. And then for the intensity stuff, like once or twice a week, because they don't have that much intensity stuff, they actually drive down to a place to 1,000 meters over sea level and do it there, right? So it's different for them, where like we have like one, like depends on the periods, but right now I do like at least two intensity sessions a day, or like two pieces was really intense. And I couldn't do that. It's really interesting. Let's take a really interesting example. It's like 10 times 400 meter run on a track. Normal on like sea level, I could probably run that in like 115, 120 paces for 400 meter. Up there, it took me like 125 to 130. It just because it's so much harder, and you cannot race. And that's the next thing. So you like same on rowing, you cannot hold the paces you have to. So you cannot always run slow. Of course, your heart rate is the same training, but you learn to teach your body to move slow.
Right.
And then when you go to sea level to a competition, say like, okay, now you have to actually move fast. Like you cannot run a marathon in 5-minute pace when you never run at 5-minute pace, right? Like it's not really like this. So that was one impact. And like I said, the overtraining, like I trained a lot during COVID, and I was just like, well, I have nothing else to do, just train. And at some point I really run into overtraining, and I didn't really understand. Like I was like, no, I'm fine, just push. And like I said, it's even harder to get out there in overtraining than like on sea level because of the recovery. And next thing, like cold weather, is just like in the morning you wake up, the first thing you do is like you scratch your car every morning, and then you go to the gym. It's cold, 5 layers of clothes. My gym was actually pretty cold, so when I went to the gym, I had to put on the heaters. Took like 30 minutes to heat up. It's just like, man, here I'm just like putting up a hoodie, and like in winter it's like, let's say colder as well, but it's 18 degrees, right? It's a bit different cold. And it's just, you feel more happy. I feel so much more happy. It's, to be honest, here on the island, I feel I'm on a different schedule. Like I feel like I have 2 hours more a day just to feel a good schedule. And then the next point is like, it was Corona, but also back home in St. Moritz, there are no people. Like all my friends studies in like big cities, so it's good because I didn't have any time now. But I literally saw once a week people when I went to the groceries. Like I had my own gym. I never saw people. It was good. I like to train alone, but it was not good for like a long time domain. You have like group, like you have, it's a mental thing, right? Even if I don't train with people, if you have people around in a gym and you know they're looking at you, you train better, you train harder. So it is this effect, right? It's not like you even need someone to train with you or try to push you. It's just like people in a gym. Like that's why I love competition, because I know like, okay, they're watching, you better go hard because you don't want to look like an idiot, right? So I really like that mindset, and it's good.
Do you feel like you were talking about feeling happier where you are now? So do you think the sun has a big impact on this?
Yeah, for sure. I think the sun, the lifestyle, I think it's everything. Like I said, and the island is for me always has been a special place. Like I feel here more I'm on a training camp than I'm at actually home. Like I know everything. Like as soon I'm here or I arrived here, it's like, okay, you're here because you want to train, because this is the training camp mentality. Whereas like at home you have like family, like I said, you have sometimes friends. It's just harder to cut people out. Whereas like here it's just like I know a few people, but I mostly see them when I'm at the gym. But otherwise it's like training camp mentality, and I really enjoy that.
Is your knee doing better now?
Well, yeah, so it was interesting. So back to the story. So I was here in Mallorca and I was training, and it started to get good. And then I actually went to the Madrid championship. But I was still in an interesting place in my mind. I was still not pushing too hard. It was like interesting. And I went to this competition, and watching people again competing, man, it changed my mind. I was there. I had a really rough weekend. It was like heartbreaking, but it was like what I needed. I was like, I understand like why do I want to do this sport? Why did I ever start it in 2015? What was my goal, and what do I need? So something clicked in my mind, and I came back from that trip on Monday, and I was like, okay, this is what I need to do, and this is what I'm going to change. And I had to do like a lot of changes, and like not even training wise, just like small changes in my mind, small changing in my daily schedule and stuff like this. Actually have a schedule.
Can you walk us through those little, you talk about little changes. So essentially you correct me if I'm off, but you would then say that maybe everything training or most of the training was already in place before. What you were doing was you were on the right track, but then there were some tweaks that you had to bring around maybe the training outside of the training. So maybe talk about all the little tweaks that you've made in order to, like you said, optimize your training schedule, optimize just the environment that you're in, and all those details that matter so much when you're trying to grab, percents here and there.
Yeah, well, it is it's interesting with people or with human in general, or like training, like, when something doesn't work well, what do the people do the first? They like, oh, I need another training program, right? It's always this. Like, I heard so many times, like, oh, I need a different coach, I need a different training program, instead of like looking first what they do around the training program, right? And that was me. Like, I always trained hard, and I always believed in being the hardest worker. Like my ice hockey coach back then is like, you coached me. I always said, if you want to be better than the guy next to you, you have to do more than him. He does 100 push-ups, you do 100 too, and that I kept that I kept that by heart. I was like, I always had that mentality. I always trying to do more. So my training, I always trained a lot, and I trained hard the last few years. But what I was missing, like I said, was the schedule, for example. So let's take last year home. I was like home. I woke up in the morning, let's say at 8, and I was like, oh, I feel a bit smashed. Just sleep another hour and it's fine. So I would sleep until 9, and I was like, well, and that was 9:30. Had some break first, went back to bed for half an hour, and was like, oh, okay, let's go to the gym. I was like at the gym, I don't know, 11:30, whatever. And I still got my training done. So I never cut my training, but then I was just training until like 10, 11, whatever. But I was finishing my training, but just that. So what I was like you just need a schedule. So now every morning, wake up 6:30. I don't care what time. Like, for example, this week on Monday, we had a really rough Monday. We trained until 10:15. I literally ate, showered, and went to sleep. And the next morning was 6:30 again. And I woke up and I felt hammered. But it's like, there's no choice. You get up and you keep the schedule. And just living on a schedule, it's so important. It's like, yeah, like I said, sometimes you would.
I stay. Sorry, go ahead.
Say again? No, say.
Are you still able to get in enough sleep when you need it? Are you able to get your recovery in despite staying on that schedule?
Yeah, but well, first of all, I do, and I try that. Like I said, we have our own sauna here, food and everything. Try to get to sleep in, because I know this part is important. But what is more important for me is to understand. It's like, I don't care what happened. You wake up at 6:30. I really don't care. Like, you have this schedule and you stick to it. Man, there were nights I slept like it was 2 weeks or last week. I had a really bad night. I slept really bad. I don't know why, but probably like trained a lot, and like my body was shaking, and I couldn't really fall asleep, and I maybe slept like 3 hours. And I was like, well, I don't care. I wake up 6:30 and the day is here. Like, you just, well, if you're tired, just drink one more pre-workout and you will be fine. But you cannot change. Like, I really started, like, I think this is the best quote I ever had. And I think if you take it serious, it's changing your life. It's like mind over feeling, right? Like, yeah, you wake up in the morning and your feeling tells you, oh, I slept only 3 hours and I feel hammered. And your feeling tells you stay in bed, but your mind tells you, man, get up. It's 6:30. I don't care about your feelings. I don't care how you feel. You get this day done. And it's easier said than made, because sometimes it's really rough. Like, sometimes I was like, I was like, no, just go. And I put that quote over my bed. So every morning I woke up and I feel like I want to stay in bed. I look over and I was like, oh, okay, let's get up. So it's just like small things like this. It's like, stick to it. And like, yeah, I think I always say, like, yeah, you feel tired, but you can make it through. Like, in a competition, imagine, like, you think everyone sleeps good before the first day of the games? No, of course not. Everyone is nervous. So let's say you wake up in the morning and like, oh, I only slept like 4 hours, and you're like, I never slept 4 hours. How should I compete now? And I'm like, no, like, I'm used to this. I'm used to, like, yeah, like, you have 1 year, you have 365 days. You think you always sleep good, but just because of a bad night of sleep, I cannot change my whole day of training. I cannot say like, okay, today I'm not training, or I'll just do half of the stuff because I'm feeling tired. I slept bad. No, you just have to get your shit done as well. And it doesn't matter how sore you are. It doesn't matter how tired you are. You just have to finish it. And that mentality, that changed me a lot. Like, just that mindset. It's just like, I don't care what happens. You get the job done at the time. And that's what I needed, because I had like I said, especially when you train alone, you get like these small little excuses. You're like, oh, you're fine. Like, no one else does that. So it's just like, fine. You find like small things you get excuses for, where it's like really, really dangerous. And then it's one excuse and it's another excuse, and then you quit that. And that's not the good train you're on.
Is there a big difference between your quote unquote off season and then when you start going towards more competitions? Does your training look very different, or is it still pretty similar year round?
It is pretty similar. Of course, the stuff we do is a bit different. Like I said, like leading up a competition, especially an important competition, you start like probably like 4 or 5 weeks focusing a bit more specific, like doing more like short intense stuff and stuff like this. Whereas like off season, I don't really have an off season, but yeah, you just try to have maybe time and fix some stuff. For me, it's more mental. Like I really enjoy sometimes to know, okay, the next competition in 3 months, and now it's just focus on training. Like
Mhm.
don't because now, for example, I do a competition in Madrid middle of December in 2 or 3 weeks. But it's not that like it's a good competition, but I don't put it that high in my schedule. But then middle of January, it's the Vodapalooza in Miami, what is a big competition with a really good field. And
Mhm.
now, or every time I train, every time I think, it's like I think about the competition. It's like when you push hard, you're like, okay, do it because you do it for this. You want to feel good. So it is nice. It's a good push, but you cannot have that all year round. Like you cannot train in September thinking about the games next year because at some point it's gonna kill you. Like, and that's what I'm saying. Sometimes it's nice having 2 or 3 months just like no competition running coming up and just like think about training. Think about how can I get this day better, or how can I get this thing today better, but not thinking always about because I believe if you think every day I want to win the games next year, it's gonna eat you up. I think that's not the way to do. And I think you can see that in sports in general a lot. Instead of like trying to focus, getting better, and then when the time is come, you think about the games and you think about winning and you think what you have to do.
Are there
But
things that you've changed in your training in regards to, you getting better? Maybe what is there some things that you've assessed over the last couple of years, maybe that you still have to work on relative to the field that you're competing against?
well, so I always was my own coach. I always made my own programming. Even back then when I started working with John, it was always my programming we used. Like I said, I love, let's say I have a movement. I love to look at the movements like, okay, what's the problem? Okay, well, which muscle is the problem? What is the problem? Is it capacity? It's which part? How we can train this? So I always was thinking like, if I see something, that's what I was saying when I was coaching normal people and I saw something, I always like, ding, 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 what could I do to make it better? So I always coach myself, and yeah, I learned a lot the last 4 years. And I always try, like I said, I tried a lot of things. Some things didn't work, some things worked really good. Uh, and it's like it's a learning process. And I think now I'm at the point where like I have the perfect programming. I know I did literally probably all the mistakes I could do. I feel for me personally, I have the perfect programming in strength. I have the perfect programming in conditioning, uh, and then put it all together. What I made some changes, yeah. Well, changes for this year a lot, like especially, but not in the strength part, more in the conditioning part.
Hmm.
So I started to measure all my sessions with actually lactate.
Hmm.
Uh, I was never a fan of heart rate, so I really went into the lactate. What is really interesting because I believe CrossFit is a lactate sport, not a heart rate sport. It's because it's different and it's better measurable, right? So some days like your heart rate can be so messed up. Like I said, you have a bad night of sleep, you had more caffeine than normal, and sometimes your heart rate is just going up, but your body feels actually good. Whereas like lactate always gives you the right numbers. Like it always gives you. For me, it's like it's really interesting to see now. I do it since like 2 months, and the numbers are so accurate with my feeling as well. Like sometimes you're tired and you have an hour easy bike, and I want an easy bike and I feel like I'm pushing way too hard. Like I'm dying. I'm taking half in the session, I take lactate and it's like at 2 millimoles. Like, no, this is where I have to be. Like you're totally fine. Relax, you're fine. Whereas like in the heart rate, it's really hard to say these kind of things, right? Or when you do hard intervals, like okay, you can see, okay, am I pushing hard enough? And it shows up like 8 or 9 millimoles. Like, no, you have to push harder the next one. You know what I mean? It really shows you clearly like yes or no where you are. But it's like it's really hard with a heart rate. I know you're really into Moxie as well.
Hmm.
we played around a lot with Arno. I think he's using it since like 2015 or something.
He was definitely early in the game.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I'm actually waiting. I really want to get one, but the problem, I think they haven't brought out yet the software for Apple.
Yeah, they're working on it.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what Arno told me as well. And as soon as this one is out, I really want to get one.
Mm-hmm.
And the Moxie was also really interesting, not just for training. We used it in both. So we used it for training, but also it was really interesting to see for testing. So we did like a CrossFit workout. And then I was like, okay, I want to see if I go this pace on an air bike, how deep it goes and how quick can I recover. And it was really interesting to see, like, I could literally go really hard on a bike and I felt like I was in a limit. But then on a Moxie, you could see how quick in like 5 seconds I recovered. And just like mindset wise, it's really interesting to see. It's like, oh, actually, like I can go this pace on a bike to get this feeling, and then you're fine because in 5 seconds, you're literally there where you have to be again. So I definitely want to improve, put in the Moxie again as well. So like I said, the changes for this year was more professional and everything. So just like if I do the conditioning session, it's not just like I do it exactly right. And I have exactly the purpose for that session. So every session has a purpose. And I really want to hit the purpose like exactly how I need it. You know what I mean? Like I can do 1 minute sprint intervals. I can do it anyway, but you can do it right or not, right? Like you can push 80%, but you can also push. And like I said, it was a lactate measuring is really interesting because you literally get the numbers and they tell you push hard enough or you are actually like a little pussy. So it is stuff like this. It's really interesting. And I was always interested and I'm always interested in learning new things. I'm really interested in learning from other sports. So one of a good friend, I think he was also on your podcast, Barnaby. So last year I contacted him like, hey, can you send me some training plans? I just want to see how you guys train. I want to understand how to be a better rower, how you actually train for be a better rower. And that helps me a lot. So I have a friend, I know a guy, Tom Elmer. He's a runner from Switzerland.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, I want to see how you train. Can you send me like 1 or 2 weeks of your training? And he sent me over. And it's just like really interesting to analyze stuff from other sports as well. And you cannot implement that one-to-one. So for example, like let's say take triathlon where they have most of the rule is like 80% easy, 20% like hard. That's not working for CrossFit because we are such a high intense sport. But some stuff you can implement in, but at the end you have to understand, and I had to understand that I made a mistake. CrossFit is their own sport. They have their own things you have to work on. So you can learn from other sports, but not everything works one-to-one.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like you say, and after you've seen enough types of training, enough sports, you start to see trends. And like you said, you can start to implement it the way that you need it, not exactly the way that they're doing it for their own sport, but try to find commonalities, differences, and maybe how you can optimize your own programming in regards to all those parameters.
Yeah, exactly. Same with strength. Like I started to get in like 2 years ago, really deep in like Westside Barbell and their philosophy. And they have some really like, man, if you haven't listened to Louis yet, like if he talks, you're just like in there. I'm like, whoa, I was like in there. And but I also had to understand that not everything is one-to-one. They are powerlifters. They do that for 1 rep. And we are CrossFitters. Yeah, we have some max out stuff, but like I said, the implements of like their accessory stuff and like the reverse hyper and all those little things and how to use it and maybe change it a little bit, that was really helpful. But you cannot take everything one-to-one. And I had to learn that because it's pretty easy.
It's easy to dive in and try to do all the programs at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's you have to find the right way. And that's what I'm saying right now. I feel I have the perfect programming because right now I had a lot of time, like I said, doing this summer as well to understand, to put things together, think about how to put it together and what I actually need. And I'm seeing it at that point where it's like, I would sell that product, when you're, but I'm not selling it because I don't want to make other
not
people.
Yet.
Not yet.
not
So,
yet. When you went over those different training programs, you said you talked to Barnaby on the rowing side and your other friend on the running. What were the biggest things that you were able to extract, whether it's things to implement or just principles that you were then able to transfer to your own programming?
mostly just principles. It was not like I wasn't looking at, like, of course, the running guy, he was like running, I don't know, over 100K a week. I was like, well, that's great for him, but like there's no point. Like, it's interesting. It's really same as Barnaby. They row every day like 20, 30K. I was like, well, it's really interesting, but it's no point for me to do that.
Mhm.
But it's more like interesting, okay, which cadence they spend time, why they do that, or what they do. Like, it's really interesting because especially rowing, it's a 6-minute sport, right? It's a short sport. How much time they spend in the long endurance stuff, or like just understanding like small things. And it's like, okay, how can I make the best rowing program for CrossFit?
Is that
How
something
do I
you're
get
doing?
better?
Did you implement more of this, of the low intensity? Although you did say it's not the same sport, you can't do as much, but
Yeah.
is that something that you increased over the years or decreased over the year? The low
No, I
intensity
always
stuff.
had that. I think I was
Mm.
one of the, not first one because I don't know everyone, but I always, even when I started, because I had it from ice hockey. So even back in 2015, 16, I always had once a week. I went for 90-minute to 2-hour bike session. So I always had that. I like I said, I had some periods where I thought like it's more like I did a lot of like long endurance stuff because I thought it helps me. Like last year, for example, I spent a lot of long endurance stuff during the winter where we had no competitions, but it didn't really got the one-to-one effect. I think you have to do it in CrossFit,
Mm.
but if you do it too much, it doesn't help. So it's just
Mhm.
wasting time. So right now I spend once a week an hour on a rower on low intensity stuff and 1 hour to 90 minutes on a bike. And as soon I can start running or like running normally or like higher volume running with my knee, it's going to probably be like a 45-minute longer run as well. So it's like 2 to 3 easier longer sessions over the whole week, but the rest is like mostly at threshold or the mostly at like high intensity stuff.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. So you talked about being a pro athlete and being able to live through what you do. Are you able to live right now full time as an athlete with your sponsors and with your earnings and all that?
Yeah, so the first that was interesting as well. I had to thought about it when I had, like I said, the last few months I was like starting to think back. And when I started in 2015, 16, I quit my job as a coach and I had no money, like no money. And I never wanted to have money from anyone. Like my parents always ask, "You're fine?" It's like, yeah, I don't need money. I'm fine. I had literally like $100 on my bank account. So that was driving me because there were points I went to competitions. I was like, if I'm not going to win this competition, let's say it was a smaller competition. Let's say the German throwdown had like 2,000 euros prize money, but I went there. I was like, if you're not going to win this competition, I don't know how to live the next 2-3 months, and I might have to break down and I have to go back home and find a job,
Mm.
right? So the pressure you get from that and the motivation you get, it's like a different level. And that's the problem with, like, I think you like Conor McGregor is a really good example, right? He had this fire as well when he had nothing. And now you can see he got successful. He has a lot of money and fame. He just got weak. You can literally see how he gets really weak. And that's really interesting what happens to people. And I think the first 2 years for me were hard, like finance wise. And then I think from 2018, I could like totally live out of sponsors. So in 2018, I signed a few contracts with sponsors, and I could I quit my job, and or like I was 17, I went actually to Dubai coaching a little bit to make some money, and then after that I was fine. I just like go all in, go as a pro athlete. Like back then they were like, even now, like CrossFit is not like soccer or something, like it's not like the big money, but you can live with it. Like,
Yeah.
and now we talk about sponsorship money, and then 1920, when I did 19 well at the games, that helped me a lot. I got a sponsorship with Nike, what was always a dream of me. And since then it's like, it's, yeah, you can definitely live with it, but I always say it's like a normal job in Switzerland. That's why you have to think a little bit money wise.
Mm-hmm. How do you plan for the future in that case? Because obviously you still have some years of competing ahead of you, but not, maybe 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. So do you already think about the after CrossFit, the after athlete life? What comes after for Adrian?
It's interesting. Yeah, like of course you think sometimes about it, but I'm really I believe if you want to successful in like if you want to be successful in what you do right now, you have to live in the right now. Like I don't think I have still a lot of things I want to compete, and like I said, I believe I'm 29 now. I believe I have like at least 3 years left, maybe
Mm-hmm.
4.
Mm-hmm.
That's my 100%. Like I was a late starter, so I started CrossFit like 23, 24, 24. So I believe I have 3, 4 years left. Like, yeah, there are thoughts and things I would like to do, but right now I'm so obsessed. I'm so motivated just what I'm doing right now. So yeah, I cannot tell you. Like, and to be honest, like if you would have asked me 5 years ago when I started CrossFit that I'm going to be a professional athlete, having big companies as a sponsors, live of it, uh, and I would have said like you're crazy, or like I would be like I wouldn't have planned that. So like I said, I don't know what is in 4 years. I really don't know. Like so I want to, and like I said, if I'm really successful now, my 4 years is going to look different. In 4 years, my life going to be look different than if I'm not successful. So my time is now. I actually understand that when I turn 29, it's like you actually don't have that much left. It gives you another drive. You're like, man, you can change now your rest of the life. If the next 3, 4 years go well, like really well, you can change the outcome of the rest of your life, right? If not, it's a different way. So yeah, well, there are 2 things. First of all, I would love to be a houseman. That was one thing. I would love to find a wife who actually likes to work, has a good job, and I would love to take care of my kids because I think at
That's
the
awesome,
end
man.
of, I think when at the end when you're like, I don't know how long I'm gonna live, but if you're there and you're old and you're looking back of your life, I think the missing part is like what you get, like, yeah, maybe you want the CrossFit Games, it's nice, but that was so long time ago. Whereas like when you see your kids, I want to spend time with them. And I think it's such a short time because like a kid turns 16 and like I moved away from home with 14 to play ice hockey. I was like, bye bye guys. And they haven't seen me or like not much since then.
Mhm.
And I want to grow up with them. I want to help them. I want to push them. I just want to be there. So I would love to be a houseman. And that's one thing. And yeah, that's probably the main thing. And
Yeah,
then
that's
I would also
awesome.
like being in a strength conditioning area, but in different sports and not CrossFit, because yeah, to be honest, I love doing CrossFit as a sport, but I think watching wise, it's fucking boring. Like, if you don't know people and you're like I love to watch a good ice hockey game. I love to watch, not that much into soccer, but I love watching skiing. I love watching
Mhm.
ski cross country, and it's just like I would love to make like actually strength conditioning like area, like either like 2 versions, like where you have a gym where people come to you, so that, and they're all personalized because I believe every athlete is different. Every athlete has different needs.
Mhm.
So something like this, but definitely with like professional people. Like I said, there's never like there's not. I would really be surprised if I would open a gym for normal people or like
Mhm.
normal people. Nothing. Don't be offended, normal people, but like
There is,
yeah,
like you said, there is a huge gap between going to the gym 2 or 3 days a week and dedicating your life and all your time. Like you said, it's not just the training; it's the training plus everything, every other. We talk about the other 23 for you. It's a little bit less because you spend more time training than most people, but it is really the whole package, and that's really what enables you to just, I guess, exploit your everything that you got, the potential that you have, and really to try and tap into that at the utmost.
I think it's just a challenge. Like if someone comes in and tells me, yeah, I just want to be a bit more fit than now. And I just feel like I have to train a little bit. I don't see a challenge. But if someone comes like, hey, train me, I want to win this, I want to get better, I want to go like, and that's what I'm saying. I would even love to like coach like the young age, like
Mm-hmm.
when I was 16, like we had crazy ice hockey coaches and they made crazy stuff with us, but we never regressed. We just did it because we had one dream, was one day being a professional athlete, and we thought he knows how to get there, the coach, right? So we just did it. We never asked. It's like, tell a 30-year-old professional athlete to like do this. They're like, what the fuck? Like, and one of a good friend of mine. He's actually strength conditioning coach in Zurich at the
Mm-hmm.
ice hockey club, And he says the exact same. It's like how you want to change a mindset of a 30-year-old Canadian professional ice hockey player. It's not fun. Fun is like the young people. Like I would love to coach like 16, 17-year-old guys. And that's where they need the help. It's like, okay, you have a step, I don't know, you want to play the Swiss highest league or what, you have this goal. And whatever I tell you, you do it. And that's what I want. Not like, I don't want to have conversation about it. Why are we doing this now? And why are we doing this? It's like, man, just get over it. Like, it's fine. Let go. So that would be really cool. And I think that would be a big dream. Or like, I even would like to have a challenge if someone comes in and is like totally overweighted, has like 200 kilos on their ribs. And it's like, I need to lose weight. And I do everything for this. I would say, let's do it. Because it's a new challenge for me. But normal people are not challenging for me.
You need the all-in part. You need the all-in part.
Exactly. Yeah. Because that's my life. Like that's what I'm saying. If I'm going into something, I'm mostly like all in. Like I'm like the halfway for me. It's not always like it's not. If it's halfway, I don't really care about it. So I need a challenge, and I think the challenge keeps life interesting.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. Adrian, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the podcast. I have one last question for you, actually, from Julian that he's asking when's the next training camp?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a really good question. I hope next summer. We'll see. It was such a good fun. For people who don't know, we did last year with Jonnekoski, and we did like in St. Moritz, actually my home place, we did training camps. And that was so much fun. Like we thought, like we didn't know because we never did something like this and that big. And they were sold out really quick. And we were like, okay. And then we came and we had the perfect weather in St. Moritz. We had, like I said, like Julian and his friends. We had such a great crew. It was so much fun. We were thinking to do it this year, but then this year with like the games, like last year was perfect because there were no games because of COVID, or not really. And then this year with the games and like I said, and me anyway, like going into like having a bad time with my personal and stuff, I was just like, I just can't, like that wouldn't be the same. But I really hope next year, because that was a lot of fun. Even if it was, that was a lot of fun.
Awesome, man. Well, we look forward to hearing about the dates whenever they come out. Where can people find you online if they want to follow your training, follow what you're doing and what you're up to over the next few months?
Swipe on Tinder until you find me. No, I'm not on Tinder. It's just a joke. I don't like this. No, mostly Instagram, Adrian Mundwiler. Pretty simple. I don't check my Facebook. I don't have Twitter. I don't have Snapchat. I don't have this stuff.
Easy.
Instagram takes enough time, so it's.
It sure does. I'll make sure to put your link in the show notes. Adrian, thanks again for coming on. It was really fun.
Right.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you would like to support the podcast, please take a few moments to leave a written review and a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. If you want to watch this episode again, you can find the full video recording on my YouTube channel. You'll also find hundreds of hours of free content, all my podcasts, my thoughts of the day, structured presentations, and more. So don't wait, go subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.